Good morning. Hello. Welcome. Happy Friday. Yay. All right. So I'm trying to bring Instagram on. Welcome everybody. They're on, as well as all of you at home on YouTube. I want to welcome you to our Natural Health News live show. I am very excited because Friday is always our Q&A live. So Friday live Q&A. And this week's just been really hectic, as we've had a full week of Gabriel back in a virtual learning atmosphere, which requires one-on-one. So we have to be with him to unmute and help direct him and make him pay attention. It's been quite overwhelmingly difficult for us to kind of balance, and we're figuring out that as we speak. So I want to apologize, I didn't get a chance to post to encourage you all to send me your questions, but on the live, you can email or live chat your questions, and I will answer them this morning. I do have a shorter show that I have to conduct because of some work obligations Brian has to run to. He's got a meeting at 9:30. So I will wrap up probably around 9:40 this morning, and then I'm on mommy Gabriel duty until the afternoon. So welcome all of you. We've got a lot of news, and then we'll go through a lot of your questions live. Hopefully everything's working okay on the tech front. So I'm seeing YouTube kind of coming on slow. So I'm curious if you guys can hear me, and hopefully it's not buffering. I know there was a lot of buffering yesterday. So I just want to welcome all of you and thank you for tuning in and taking time to join us. Just want to go through a whole bunch of news. Specifically, there's a lot going on worldwide, but just globally, we're at 22 and now over 22.5 million cases of COVID. The US has 5.6 million. And we did post over 1,000 new deaths yesterday. So 1,000 new fatalities, which is just over 176,000 fatalities. Our average for the first 24 days, or our average in the last 24-hour days has been over 1,000 a day. So it looks like okay, so Instagram might be buffering. It's a Friday. But just know we're averaging about 1,000, and this has been over the last 24 days, our running average is 1,000 cases or 1,000 fatalities, 1,000 lives lost to COVID, families and community members impacted. It's significant. Now, I want to talk about some global news before we go domestic. Hungary is tightening its borders. They are seeing influence from travelers. So Hungary is tightening its borders, similar to other countries that are kind of focusing on insulation of spread. Beijing has announced that they are lifting the mask mandate. This has been ongoing for months. And so they're seeing stabilization enough that they're lifting the mask mandate. So folks in Beijing don't have to order masks like all of us and have, cases of these things, a whole bunch of other, cloth masks. Singapore is really interesting. There was a journal article out of The Lancet that identified that in Singapore, they found a brand new variant of COVID-19 that causes a milder infection. And it has some sort of large deletion in the genome. So it's all about viral genetic mutations and evolution. Well, this particular virus that they've identified in Singapore is producing milder infections because that gene deletion, part of the genome, this deleted part, through its mutation, it actually triggers a greater human immune response. So folks that are exposed to that in Singapore are actually not having the same immune response, that inflammatory immune response that folks here in the US we've seen greatly. That's what's causing the blood clots. That's what's causing the strokes, the neuro-COVID, a whole bunch of, kidney failure, the acidosis, ketoacidosis, where the blood sugar levels cause acidity in the body. So that's fascinating. I don't know how widespread that particular variation, but the Lancet really honed in on what Singapore has identified as the impact that they're seeing in that country. Now here domestically, California, oh man, California is getting hit by a double whammy. And I've had a few viewers, and we have a lot of Californians who follow us and watch either on the live, it's 6 a.m. there, or they watch us sometime as they're waking up and getting ready. They're dealing with major wildfires out there. And in the Bay Area, it's also plaguing folks that already have respiratory challenges. So asthma and intense allergies or sensitivity to air pollution. It is causing more folks respiratory strife. And the wildfires are also displacing thousands of Californians and is putting folks in a COVID risk, because now they've got to figure out where they're going to stay for a period of time. So let's just kind of give good energy to those in the Bay Area. And for all of you viewers, our thoughts and healing energies are with you out in California. California had a large day yesterday. They had almost 6,000 new positive cases and 163 fatalities. Florida continues to be just hovering under 5,000 new cases. They did have 119 fatalities. Texas had another big day, 5,300 new positive cases and 234 fatalities. New York and Georgia, about the same. New York posted 600 new cases and 28 fatalities. And Georgia posted under 3,055 fatalities. My county now, I think I showed you, I think it was late last week. I think it was Friday or Saturday. My county that I live in is the epicenter right now for COVID outbreak in schools. And the county actually has a running list. It's a district-wide list. And it literally lists out the school, their grade, how many people are in quarantine. And I checked it out this morning. It went from 1.5 pages. Now it is 5 pages long. And they highlight, this is how awesome this county is. They highlight how many new lines they've added. So like yesterday, it was the blue lines. Today it was the green lines. And, over 150 new, not new cases. There's about 30 to 40, but it's impacting over, 200 people. And we're seeing, like, there was a K-3 teacher, 2 kindergartners. So we're seeing some of the younger population of students, at least in our county, populate this database. So, no one is immune to this virus. The other thing I want to highlight, university-wise, there are now 15 states that have universities posting positive cases. And Utah, this is really big. Utah, the entire state has made it for K through 12. That includes the students. Kindergarten, okay, qualifies. So if you're a kindergartner, if you're a teacher, teacher's aide, the state has determined that they can be charged a misdemeanor for not wearing a mask. Now, that's with kindergarten. I think everybody, it's just a matter of making sure they wear it. Like with Gabriel, this happens to be an example of like the adult version of what we have for him. And we have little cloth ones. And so constantly cleaning them. And, I've got 3 or 4 on tap when he's doing his work with his one-on-one tutor that, he has a snack break, he wears a new one. So, he's constantly fidgeting with it, and one thing that we didn't really think about that's kind of interesting, and this might be something for you parents, he's working on writing. And when he makes a mistake, he erases it. Well, guess what he does? He pulls down his mask and he blows on the paper. And you don't really think like, okay, that's a point where there's possible spread. So we've had to have, talks with him. It was brought to my attention by the tutor, and I didn't think about it. And she was like, you're trying to erase, but, instead of kind of swiping off or, kind of dusting off his paper, he's pulling down his mask and blowing the eraser bits. So, just those little things can plague teachers' lives. And when you've got 20, 25 kids in a classroom, it can be very overwhelming and stress-filled. But definitely as the kids get older, they're more responsible for themselves. And that's where we're probably going to see, if anything, it's an indication of how serious Utah is taking this. And as a parent in the world of school, having a child school age, I appreciate when people are taking our health, all of our kids' health seriously. Okay, so the other thing I want to highlight as far as school and education, New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago, New York City, LA, and Chicago, the teachers' unions are actively engaging with the legislators and petitioning. And some of these are going to be lawsuits and court cases, but the teachers' unions are getting behind the teachers and the student safety, school safety, and demanding COVID protections that they're deeming are not in existence or not at the level that will protect all parties in the school system. So that is one thing that we are seeing. The other thing that's very interesting, there's a lot of stuff going on with the FDA. So yesterday I highlighted the battle between the FDA and the HHS, the Human and Health Services, the Department of HHS. So they, yesterday, I think it came out Wednesday, but I announced it yesterday that there's a battle between what regulating body will be monitoring tests. And so the efficacy of tests, the FDA issued all these, granted all these emergency authorizations for all these testing companies. Same thing will also follow suit in the world of vaccines. And so that's also a big part of the struggle. HHS is trying to circumvent the FDA like they circumvented the CDC. And one of the things that came out yesterday is that a high-ranking FDA official, somebody who's like a lifetimer kind of administrator in that world, said that they would be resigning if there were any unproven vaccines that hit the market. This is very much hinged on the Russian vaccine that has had absolutely no significant amount of trials. Russia's rolled out this vaccine. Now they're trying to profit from it. And unfortunately, the World Health Organization right now, they announced today in European time that they're in talks with Russia about this vaccine. And this is at the heels of the beginnings of those discussions. So the FDA is basically saying, look, we are not going to put our stamp of approval, or at least this one administrator is going to resign and raise a red alert. Potentially, this could be a whistleblower situation where they have highlighted that there may be a possibility that the US, with some of the kind of workings happening right now of getting authority coming out of the FDA, circumventing the FDA and the FDA's ability to stop a potential completely unfounded, there's no scientific normal rollout trial process with this Russian vaccine. And about 5 weeks ago, I announced that Russia gave Latin America, multiple countries, a total of $1 billion to gain access to the research. So basically, Russia bought the intellectual capital, they bought all the research, and then 4 weeks later, they had tested less than 100 people on this vaccine. Putin even had his daughter take the vaccine, and they are in talks of rolling this out not just to their citizens, but also the World Health Organization is having a discussion. It's in the world of science, it's literally cuckoo. It's wacky that this is actually happening. And Sue says it's a very scary scenario. Absolutely. It's already scary just how fast and the speed and efficiency of these vaccine trials are happening. We are in multiple, we're seeing multiple vaccine trials, like there's 3 or 4 ongoing that are in phase 3. That is almost unheard of. I mean, clinical trials in any type of drug scenario, it takes 10, sometimes 5, 7, 10, 15 years. And so that is something we need to be very mindful of. And if we're starting to already hear the red alert, that's significant. And, ultimately, we have some power in that, and this is the only political comment I'm going to have. We have power in that. We can change who all's in charge and ultimately change, any discussions of having a Russian vaccine hit the American country and American citizens. Okay, so I'll table that. And I also do want to highlight the FDA made an announcement, and this might get concorded. I read the whole entire announcement. Basically, they were issued some warnings about UVC lights or UV lights. They highlighted UVC is better than UVA and UVB in terms of its ability to kill COVID. They did highlight and wanted people to understand that there were some, that the UVC lights, there's a certain way of using them. It's more of direct contact, and then like with the filtration system. So my EnviroCleanse filter that I've highlighted to you, there's a link actually down below. That type of filtration process is better at inactivating some of these viral particles because it's pulling it through the HEPA, and it's got the stabilizing where the lamps are killing the particulates. But it actually wanted people to know that, the UVC won't actively kill viral particles that are covered in dust or what they said soil, as well as if it's embedded in a porous material. So like, I don't have anything to give you an example of like, my phone, not porous. I can clean this very easily. But there are some countertops that you have to use certain cleaners. And if it's porous, that countertop, even if you wanted it or had it near UV light, that would not deactivate the viral particles. So they issued some warnings. It's going to come off, I think, if it does catch the wave in kind of the normal news topics that like UV is bad. That's not what they said. They went a little bit deeper into, some cautionary aspects. So one of the big things that they said, it's the time and the intensity of the UV. So, if you're cleaning room, and I've highlighted, like, that's my UV lamp. Actually, Instagram, I don't know if I can, I can't turn this, or my mini iPad's going to flop over. But and I have my UV light that gets turned on after I leave the room, and we have it on for 10, 15, sometimes 30 minutes. And we've got several around the house. I have the air filtration happening. But they talked about the time and intensity. You never want to look at it. There is some radiation exposure, but they did say that was minimal and not to be concerned about that. But they did want to warn folks about the ozone. It does kick off ozone, and some people have respiratory sensitivities to that. And then the other thing they wanted to indicate that it is not necessarily to be considered like the end all be all germicidal. And that is something I want to highlight. It is one of many ways to approach cleaning your space. And so, Force of Nature, I think, is fantastic as a solution that you spray on items, spray on counters. UV, the way I see UV working is more of the particulates that might be airborne, especially when you're using it to clean the air in, a filtration process. So I just want to highlight that. But, that is something, I think one of the things that they've said is just to give some more information about this. And that is really critical. The vendors that I recommend are all reputable vendors, but there are a lot of folks that I think are trying to take advantage, as is usually the case in this category. So just want to put that out there. Now, the other thing in terms of news, the airline company, American Airlines, announced that they are dropping services to 15 small cities. And so we're starting to see the beginning of maybe some changes in terms of air travel and connections. So I just put that out there. Okay, so friends, I want to open it up to our live Q&A. I have a specific period of time that I've got to be mindful of to cover and take over as our homeschool virtual distance learning classroom where I sit next to Gabriel basically all morning. mid-afternoon. So send me some questions, comment down below. June says, I received my Force of Nature yesterday. Love it. Yay. And it's so easy to use. It's such a great process. Okay, Stephanie says, with private universities, how can we obtain information about cases on campus? Is this open information? That is a good question. I don't know. But I will tell you, I believe Notre Dame, they're a private institution. They have a dashboard. So like if you type in Notre Dame, I always say Notre Dame, but Notre Dame COVID, they have a dashboard. So it would be something, if you are a parent, that would have been very much descriptive in orientation materials and things like that. But it is definitely something to check out. And I announced, I kind of highlighted this yesterday, especially when parents most of the time are paying. Not most of the time. I want to take that back. I know a lot of people, finance their own and take loans and stuff, but there's also a subset where, parents are paying, and some mortgage their houses, and, it's so darn expensive. But there are customers in that type of world. So either a bank loan, agent is a customer, or the parent paying for the education as a customer. And there is a certain kind of expectation. And I have a feeling that those universities are going to be forthright. We're seeing UNC just kind of having all sorts of messes. And there was a report that, the universities, they're ready, they're prepared. They've taken on these measures, but they can't control these students having darn parties off campus. And we're even seeing darn adults, like Margaret Cross, just Good Morning from New Jersey. In New Jersey, there were like huge house parties. And so it's just part of human nature. And at a younger age, that's really difficult. Okay. So, all right, you guys, I did not do any prepared questions. So send me questions. Sabby Teak says, this is what was happening in Oz during the bushfire. Some people are more sensitive. Yeah, that's really critical. Sabby, he says she makes children's books about positive mindset. Love it. We love positive mindset. So I ordered a time in. There's a Generation Mindful is awesome. And they've got all these like positive thought cards, and they have these little stuffed animals, and it is proving to be helpful. We're finding that, like Gabriel said, he was lonely yesterday, and I hate that. So we've got to figure out how we can figure out ways to keep him connected. Okay, Sabby Teak has a question, and send me your questions down below. You can answer them. I'm so excited. Live. This is truly live. Okay, so do you think during these times children would benefit from mindful, positive books? I've started making some books regarding positivity. Yes, to that front, I do. I think particularly when it comes to mental health, and being very in touch with feelings, like, the fact that Gabriel felt comfortable enough and safe enough to say that he was lonely. And we talked about it. And like, basically this is how yesterday morning worked. When he gets up, he loves stuffed animals, and I kind of indulge him. I do get some from thrift stores, and, a lot of times it's stuff where we go places, they're cute little mementos, and all these been great for my stuffed animals for him. But he has 2 big bags, 2 big containers of stuffed animals, and he threw him down. We have a staircase. He threw them down the staircase. And like the little duckling we got from Boston when we saw Make Way, I read the book Make Way for Ducklings, and they have the broth ducklings in the Boston garden. It's like my favorite. When I lived up there, I used to walk the garden. And I always thought, if I have a kid, I just can't wait to read them that story. So he's got a little duckling. The duckling literally landed on the banister. And so when we went down, I'm like, what are you doing? And like, he threw his blankets. He's got like a tiger blanket. Threw it all. The dogs are like wearing stuffed animals because they all lay on the stairs. And he said, Mommy, I'm lonely. I just want my animals. And so he wanted them all downstairs while he ate breakfast. So I think, materials and things like that address children's health. And then also ways to, muster up internal strength and how to overcome adversity, because this is a big point of adversity for our young kids. And while they're very adaptable, it's still really hard. Okay. Gaffney Melchiori, I have 3 hernias. Is there anything to do or stay away from other than surgery? Yikes. Heavy lifting, depending on where your hernias are, I'm imagining their lower pelvis. Intense lifting can over exaggerate those. The other thing you want to probably be mindful is also because this is you're going to have the self-correction if you do have surgery. And these are cases where I do recommend surgery. Hernias are no joke. And some can be it can be a lot. And a lot of times I've had folks that go in for surgery, they have 1, they end up having 2 or 3 that get addressed that they didn't even know. So be mindful of how you carry your body, because a lot of times you adjust to pain. And so you might also be noticing misalignments like hip and spine. And in those cases, you may want to start to do foam rolling and, loosening up some of the muscles, the IT band, depending on, again, where that is. Okay, so I'm just going to go back and forth. Janet, what do you suggest a person look for when trying to find a naturopathic provider locally? Gosh, that's a really good question. It really depends on what you're seeking. Some naturopaths, there's such a variety of naturopaths. Like some are MDs that have functional medicine background. There are others like MDs like myself that went to naturopathic medical school. And then there are others that, sometimes nurse practitioners get into this category. It depends on what I would do. I'd look for somebody we specialize. I'm a specialist in a few categories. My core specialty, lymphatics, hormones, and digestion. Those are like my three things. And that for me, the way I looked at the body, it's about what are we absorbing and how are we detoxing? So gut and lymphatics. And there's, obviously greater impact that gut and lymphatics has on a lot of body systems. And then hormones are female reproductive hormones, our, weight loss and weight management hormones, our neuroendocrine system. So it depends. Now, autoimmunity is also in that category. I can't speak to some really unique, rare autoimmunity with that's my core focus. So you may want to find, focused specialty that they have. So just be mindful of that. DDJ2, can you recommend how to get rid of warts? So it depends on what type of wart, but there are some really good topical salves that you can put on the warts. I love homeopathy for warts. Thuja is a really, let me see if I think I might have it on here. Thuja is good for a lot of skin stuff. And it actually says on here. So one of the things with homeopathics, I had that hair video from almost 2 Sundays ago, where I recommend, a whole bunch of homeopathy. And sometimes what I recommend homeopathy for, it doesn't always get the marketing label, but this literally, Thuja says relieves warts. So, Thuja occidentalis, and I'll put links on down below. You can find this in my Full Script store. You get 10% off automatic. This is actually going to be cheaper than you get on Amazon and in your stores if you buy online. And we ship for free, I think, once you hit $50 of purchase. So these are $8 or $9. But Thuja would be something I would recommend. I would also do an application of neem salve. Neem is an antiviral, antimicrobial. That works on molluscum contagiosus, the molluscum, I think it's molluscum contagiosus, but molluscum is this little warty, kind of, it looks like skin, it's like skin tag meets a wart, and it's very contagious. A lot of kids get it. So that is something you could use. So internally Thuja, and then topically neem. I love that. Okay, so I saw Julie. Hey, Julie Clancy. She says, having issues with constipation, I tab a pack. I'm thinking I take a cap full of Metamucil in the day. I drink 80 ounces of water, and I take stool softeners at night. I have bloating and gas with no relief. Okay, so stool softeners, not a big fan of. I would eradicate those if they have a senna or cascara sagrada, or a higher level of magnesium citrate. Usually they don't. Usually they've got the kind of, they're the, what do they call it? The laxatives. I'm not a fan of laxatives. They actually do a disservice to your gut. They don't allow your large intestine to do its work. And in fact, it can actually have a reverse effect. So there's often a reliance on that, and there's a reason for that. So what I would say, Julie, look at your magnesium levels, add magnesium. I would add dandelion tea. The other thing that when folks have bloating and gas, that tells me that there's a microbiota imbalance. And depending on where that is, you can have bloating and gas in your small intestine, which is belly button to the lower pelvis. And then, so there's some areas where you might be able to look at your abdomen, and especially after you eat, if it's within 20, 30 minutes of eating, that's small intestine. So you've got bacterial imbalances in your small intestine. If it's gas and bloating, like before you have a bowel movement or you hear like those rumbling noises, that's large intestine. So there's a lot of different kind of reasons why you might have that gas and bloating. So I dig in further into that, but really look at, this is what I recommend. Magnesium, maybe dividing your doses, have 375 and 375 divided out morning and evening. So really up your magnesium. You're hydrating well. The question is, are you getting enough fiber? Are you taking probiotics? Are you eating probiotic and prebiotic rich foods? A lot of fiber content in your food. And then Metamucil, not a big fan of either, but love dandelion and milk thistle. The liver will help produce bile that actually, it works as an emulsifier, and it just lubricates the intestines and gets stuff moving out. And that is how and why you should be having healthy, easy bowel movements that are in and out, and that should have no straining. You shouldn't have any hemorrhoids because of it. So I hope that helps. Let's see, any other questions? Okay. And Instagram, I'm answering questions. So if you have any health questions, comment down below. Yesterday, Pat says, yesterday a viewer wanted to know what you recommend for loss of taste and smell. There is a homeopathic right now, and I can't remember the name. It's in a blend. It's not sepia. It is pulsatilla. It's pulsatilla. That is what I recommend. That was in one of the blends that I had that I recommended, I think, earlier in the week or last week. Pulsatilla does have the ability to help that nerve that's inflamed. Pulsatilla, Pulsiti. I think it's LLA or LA. It's one or two L's at the end. Okay, so Karen, hey Karen, having thyroid issues, high TSH with high cortisol, where should I start? Start with cortisol lowering, Reloraplex. So Karen, I actually have recommendation list or my favorites list in my FullScript store. So I don't know if you've signed up for FullScript. You set up a patient account. It's all HIPAA qualified. So that's why you have to give your name and your email before you get logged in. Once you do, you've got full access to buy whatever you want. But you can see my favorites list. And I have an adrenal, let me see, let me pull it up really fast. FullScript. I have an adrenal cortisol list, and let me see. Let me tell you what it looks like. But that would be something that I would start with. Like Reloraplex would be one. I'd be, getting your rhodiola, your holy basil. Let me see. Let me go to my. Let's see. I'm trying to see my recommendations. My favorites. I do have a favorite list. I just can't remember how I can see it on my end. But I would definitely go to that. Let me see. Oh, favorites. Here they are. Okay, so my favorites list is, internet's running a little slow. Let's see, my favorites is, so I would do, I actually have, let me look at everything. Yeah. Okay. So I have a hypothyroid list, and everything on there is going to be helpful. Like thyroid 1, thyroid support complex. I have adrenal power. Oh, there's an adrenal power powder. That's a tongue twister. That's awesome stuff. And so for you with the high TSH, that would be, I'd go totally to the hypo. Okay, so Instagram's buffering. Okay, Yvonne, my son's OCD has gotten worse during this time. What can I do to help him naturally? So, one of the things with OCD, this is all about our neurotransmitters, the health of our brain and the chemistry of the brain. What triggers the chemistry of the brain are the adrenals. So you want to address stress levels. How old is your son, Yvonne? There's actually a supplement that I give Gabriel. Gosh, my kid is so good. I'm so grateful he takes everything. Literally, I have this new one that's like for focus. But there are 2 items. I'll post the links. Let me just write down Gabriel's focus. Actually, there's 3. One's like a detoxer, so it gets rid of any toxins in the children's system. It's good for liver balancing. But then there's a liquid herbal. And let me write down the focus. So, and I will post the links, I promise. Just let me know his age. But OCD, very common. Even adults, we're all dealing with the stress of this. And kids, that is part of it. Okay, so, okay. I love all these questions. Okay, so what kind of magnesium for constipation? So there's different forms of magnesium. The one that will give you the greatest like bowel movement is going to be magnesium citrate, but that is to bowel tolerance. You could also add a little vitamin C, 2,000-3,000 milligrams of vitamin C. That's another to bowel tolerance. I actually like the magnesium glycinate. It's more bioavailable and it won't cause constipation. So you can actually take more, dose up. It's a better way if you are low on magnesium to level up without having, diarrhea. But if you're using magnesium to deal with and address constipation, magnesium citrate often will have the, kind of natural laxative effect. Dwayne says, a few shows ago, you gave a name of something a person could take for loss of smell. Oh, Pulsatilla, Pulsitilla. Leah loved yesterday's show. Oh, yay. I didn't realize my metal retainer in my mouth could be causing more bacteria buildup. Oh, yeah. Other recommendations for paste and wash, since I have allergies to some of the ingredients. I would actually make your own. There are a lot of really good ingredients that you can use. So just, kind of play around. Pinterest might be one of your best resources. But thank you for tuning in. I'm so glad you liked it. Okay, let's see here. Janet, hey, good. Janet Shakes. Good morning, doctor. I'm 55, living with gallstone. What can I do to get rid of them? Cleanse your liver. There's different ranges of gallstones depending on how severe. If you've ever had a gallstone attack or even stones, blocking the bile ducts, then we're getting to severity level. But if you just want to flush them out, really up your dandelion and milk thistle intake. And I would do 2 or 3 teas a day of dandelion, the traditional medicinals, and then 40 drops of milk thistle with each of those. And that'll get a lot of good stuff. The other thing, depending on if you find you have a history of gallstones, the LipoGold, I'll write this down, LipoGold. I have to make sure I cover all of my links for you guys on the replay. LipoGold would be something you might not be metabolizing and processing fat appropriately, which would be a good idea to add in so that there's less strife from the pancreas to the to that gallbladder. Okay, Sue, have you heard about the saliva test developed at the University of Illinois and how reliable it is? Students have to take it 24 hours before they're allowed into any building on campus. It might be that one that I mentioned. There was one that came out of, let's see. This is what's so great about having a notebook. This is my second COVID news notebook. It's the Yale test. More than likely, they've been testing it, so it turns things around in 3 hours. If it's the Yale saliva direct test, yes, I reported about that 4 days ago. So I don't know, but the one thing is that a lot of tests are inaccurate, but this one is cheap. It's less than $10, which is a tenth of the price of the normal test results, and it's really great for the speed. It's all about speed. Faster we get to know if somebody's contagious, then you get contact tracing, then you get those people quarantined. That is how we do this. But we first have to get the testing up. We need to nail the testing. Trisha, good morning. How do you cleanse your blood and boost your pH balance? I actually have a whole video on that. So I would recommend you check that video out. It's very detailed, but we dig into pH, we dig into, the chemistry of your body and how to balance that out, but definitely greens. Nina H, do you have advice on how to reduce ascites? I have a family member that has to get the fluid drained every month, or 2 is on fluid pills, recently recovered from Hep C. I would have, and there's a lot to that. So I don't really know a whole lot of the history there, but lymphatically, I would recommend they watch my, I think almost 50 video playlist on lymphatic drainage techniques. And there's LymphStim, which is my favorite lymphatic motivator. You can find that in my, my full script store. It's my #1 seller. I have all my patients on it that have lymph issues, and it motivates fluid. If you want to detox your body, if you want to motivate your lymphatics, you want to clear toxicity out, you want to get rid of cellulite, you want to get rid of puffiness. It's not just for lymphatic patients, it's for everybody. And LymphStim, I really firmly believe one of the things that, and this was a motivator for me getting into lymphatics really right on after I finished school, was that I felt that one of the things we miss here in America is motivating and supporting a very key detox system in the body. And most of the time, doctors don't, they learn literally 2 sentences in the anatomy and physiology books about the lymphatic system. And it is a critical system. It helps your body get rid of toxins. It eliminates cancer cells. It is immune. It helps the body the immune system respond. It's linked to certain core organs, our bone marrow, our thymus gland, our spleen. It is critical. And if you don't address your lymphatics, you become toxic and you become overwhelmed with cellular debris and you have body imbalances. And so for anybody who has healing delays, fluid, swelling retention, even vascular imbalances, we have to support the lymphatics. And that is something that I will always highlight and educate throughout my career. Okay, let's see. Wendy, hey Wendy, hello doctor. Would you tell us if there's any cure for psoriasis? Yes. Any help I would appreciate. Thanks also, any help for UTI. So digestive imbalances, psoriasis and eczema are gut related. It is a physical presentation of what's going on with the internal skin. So the internal skin in our gut is the mucosal lining of your small and large intestine. When we have psoriasis and eczema, it is a physical representation. Skin is a secondary detox organ. The digestive system, the lymphatics, the lungs are primary. And so we look at that in the bladder too, so we're flushing out toxins. We look at psoriasis as a gut imbalance. So I would definitely heal the gut. UTI, you may have, there's imbalances. It's not uncommon for folks to have bacteria that should be in the gut end up in the urinary tract. And I have folks that get that tested. Lular, hey Lular, 7695. I have fatty liver and started drinking dandelion with milk thistle and also take 2 pills with it, with the same in it, and also trace mineral drops, like 40 drops a day. Let me see, wondering, will it help with constipation? It should. Now, here's the thing with constipation. If you have had chronic constipation for any length of time, you can actually have that constipation but it changes the structure of your bowels, your large intestine. So you'll actually have a stretching and elongating on this left side. So that can pose a challenge for folks. Oops, we're buffering on Instagram. Gosh, that's so precarious. My phone is totally dead, by the way. So in the midst of the chaos this week, my phone's not working. And so I have a new phone coming, and now I'm working on my mini iPad. But so one of the things that happens with chronic constipation is the structure of your bowels, they change. And so that poses a problem. Even when you start getting bowel movements, you can have bowel accumulation occur. So the structuring of that large intestine, that's where like myomassage and abdominal exercising, pelvic floor strengthening exercises can help restructure. Women, like when we deliver, when we have babies, the bowel's got to restructure, and it can sometimes not go back to where it's supposed to. And a lot of women have that challenge. Okay, one more question, and then I've got to run. Okay. Jen G, my 17-year-old has ADHD and takes meds for it. Is there something safe I could give to him to help him wind down for a reasonable bedtime? Yeah. So the one thing, check with a pharmacist, but generally like GABA, GABA is a very good neurotonic. The other thing at 17, I would try REM sleep. And this doesn't have anything that would counterbalance, but again, run it by the herb. Like it has valerian, it has magnolia bark and hops. Those are going to be good for the adrenal imbalance. ADHD is going to be adrenal. There's an adrenal element. And so you want to address the adrenals because the adrenal cortex itself is going to be what might be imbalanced and not sending all of the right signals to the brain for nourishment. The other thing that I always really want any developing brains to be on is DHA. So I want healthy omegas in the brain. And those become nerve tonic, like omegas are calming. So I would try that. Magnesium as well. Okay, so I've got to run. Got to do mommy time in for school. I can't even remember what we're doing, but we have a whole agenda for school. And I have to say, Gabriel is doing really well. I'm very proud of him. And, one of the things that I am trying to figure out, and I want to be completely transparent with all of you, I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue to do our Monday through Friday lives. I'm finding my mornings are just overwhelmingly chaotic, and I'm feeling that stress on my body. And I've got to sort that out, how that works with our schedule. Because Brian does help me. He also has a full-time job and a lot of commitments too. And so I'm trying to work that out. I want to see how next week goes. We're on day 9 today, or no, day 8. Today is, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, we're on day 9 of, this new schedule that we have. But it may be something where I have just a live show on a Saturday. And then I continue to produce the edited content. So I got to work that out. And maybe it's, I do shorter lives to my private community here on YouTube. For those that want to join it, then, that would be something that would be, part of that program. So I've got to figure that out. I just want to put that out there. I don't know how long I can do this. It's quite overwhelming. And all the things that go with putting out a video, even though it's not edited, there's still a lot of production before and after. And so I got to work that out. But I just want to let you know, you guys are always inspiring to me. I hope you have found this video helpful. I hope you will give me a thumbs up, hit that share button, and go ahead and please comment on the video when it gets edited. And at some point throughout the day, I will post those links for the ones that are really easy. I'll hit that right now. And we'll go from there. Okay, friends, thank you. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye. Thanks, Pat, for moderating, and thanks, everybody, for so many thoughtful, wonderful questions.